Hi Stitch family, it's Andrew here with the third in my installment of interviews with Stitch members from around the community, telling their story and giving you a bit of an insight into what's happening in parts of the community all around the world. If you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, and if you're not yet, then you should subscribe down below. You will have already seen that I've done a couple of interviews already, one from Kim B in Sacramento, one from Q in the UK. And the idea with these stories is really, these are ordinary members of the community, in some cases doing extraordinary things. In other cases, it's really just hearing about how they found the journey of becoming part of a community like Stitch and what they got out of it. And in every case, I have found personally to be inspired by hearing some of these stories, and I'm really appreciative of our members being willing to share what's happened to them and their thoughts about the community. Because I know that people who are out there who might be on the fence or really unsure about what it might mean for them, by seeing a glimpse of another member's life, we hope that that's inspiring. I certainly find it inspiring myself. And it's just a way of helping communicate that breadth of the community. So yeah, if you haven't seen those previous videos, go check them out. They're fantastic. For this one, I wanted to not right or wrong, but we needed to kind of correct the fact that number one, we hadn't had an interview with any male Stitch members yet. And number two, we hadn't had anyone from Australia, which is a bit ironic given I'm based here in Sydney, Australia. So we wanted to focus on one of the male members from Australia. And given that this week it marks the date that Melbourne, Australia comes out of lockdown. I don't know, if you're not Australian, you might not know this, but Melbourne has had the greatest number of days in lockdown of any city in the world. It's extraordinary. I don't know the exact number, but it's really been crazy. So they have spent a long time indoors, which obviously has had some really troubling and damaging effects on people's lives, employment, social connections, all that sort of stuff. And it's really made it difficult for the community as well. Daryl joined at the beginning of this year and has seen that whole arc of joining the community, being in lockdown, figuring out how to deal with things. And his own personal story is certainly a little bit inspiring as well to find out what he's gone through. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for Daryl I've just actually finished my interview with Daryl now, and you're about to enjoy it yourself. I hope you find it useful. And if you've got any suggestions for other people you'd like to see included in the next update, I do them on every 1 or 2 months. Please let me know in the comments or send us a message on Stitch, and I hope to hear from you soon. Hope you enjoy it. Here we are, Daryl. How are you going?
Good, thanks, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, good. So we decided we'd do a little bit of a chat about your story and your journey into Stitch. A few reasons, really. And one, you shared with me previously some of that story, which I found really affecting and quite motivating for us and inspiring. And I think that's something we'd like to share. So probably a good way to start is just telling us how did you get started at Stitch? Tell me where you were at when you found out about Stitch and what it was like to join the community and go through that sort of process.
Yeah, sure, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, I woke up half asleep one morning, and for some reason, your interview on one of the television stations showed up on my Facebook feed. And I can barely remember watching it. All I can remember is three things: that it was for over 50s, it wasn't a dating site, and it was about doing activities. And then I downloaded the app and forgot all about it. And then 2 days later, when I couldn't get out of bed and I didn't know why, I knew it had it was to do with my mental health, with just splitting up with my partner for 10 years, and I didn't have a job. I had no way of paying the rent. So I had really heightened fear of homelessness. And I remembered the Stitch app, so I just had a look at it in bed because I had nothing else to do. And it just hit me like a truck when in your introductory video, you'd said that loneliness was like smoking 15 cigarettes per day. And then I just realised what was wrong with me. So I was able to get up and verify my membership with Stitch, and then just started, like everyone does as a limited member, just looking through what it was all about.
you mentioned being in a dark place and being on your bed looking at social media when you're feeling down and low is actually quite a common thing to do. But it's also very common not to then take a step. Can you kind of, in hindsight, put your finger on what really triggered it and what made you go, I mean, quite honestly, a lot of people, even though when they are feeling a bit lonely, they don't like to think about themselves being lonely. So it's almost like self-defense mechanism kicks in. Were you just receptive at that point in time, or tell us about how you're feeling?
Well, many things. I think one thing is that I knew straight away that Stitch was a community. And beyond and above all that, I knew that being part of a community is not just, being a member of a community is not just about being like a customer where I pay money and then I expect something, but being part of a community is equally as much about what you can contribute as well. So I knew straight away, without knowing anything about Stitch, that I was joining to be part of something is what it means to be.
And did you have a background in getting involved in community sort of things, community activities at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I've been on one board of not-for-profit and no, two actually, and different kinds of things. Nothing like Stitch. So and I've been employed by a social enterprise as well. So I have some singular experience what a social enterprise is. So.
Like what caused you, because what actually did happen is you joined and straight away you suggested something to do, right? Like I think you told me was it just a catch up for a meal or something?
Correct, yeah, just a counter meal. So I was interested to hear one comment you made at one of the new member intros, Andrew, was that your original concept of Stitch was that when people were out doing something, like they could just meet up for a movie or a dinner or something like that. So without knowing, that's what I did. So I'd never been to a Stitch activity, not an in-person Stitch activity before. Yeah. So I just thought, from what I could initially understand about Stitch, I thought, well, I'm out going to an osteopath appointment, so there's a pub next door. I thought, well, I can either eat when I come home, or I can just try Stitch and put an event up there, and maybe 5 or 6 people might turn up for a counter meal. And because I have no social anxiety, I've got no problem. I think one of the reasons why, one thing that used to annoy my ex-partner a bit was that people would sit down in the movies and I would just say, oh, hello, my name's Daryl, what's your name? So I've got no social anxiety.
So you definitely are a good fit for a community organizer. Interestingly, you've seen one of the other videos I did. The first one I did with a community member was Kimby from California. She was the opposite. She was actually quite an introvert, but actually she found that by doing this, it's given her a whole lease of life. So it's interesting how people go on that journey. So what actually happened when you posted an event?
That's right. So I didn't know anything about it. So I just had, I think I booked for about 12 people just in case at the pub, and then 15 people booked, and then the Stitch newsletter came out, and then 35 people booked in, and it was just as we were coming out of lockdown number 2 or 3, I've forgotten now in Melbourne. We're up to number 6 now. But so people just booked like they were panic buying toilet paper, So
right.
Yeah.
So I've kind of lost my train of thought because I'm just thinking about what that might have been like. We often have people when a community is first starting worried that no one's going to show. It sounded like you didn't have that concern from a social anxiety perspective. You had the opposite, which was like you were just being bombarded with too much. What was the event like when it took place?
Oh, it was great. Well, I opened it up as I forgot what you call it now. I opened it up anyway for everybody. A public event, beg your pardon.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just engaged with people, and I think only 2 or 3 people didn't turn up. They were limited members. But I think what happened was because it got booked, and I saw a couple of 2 community champions had booked in, and so I contacted one of them and I asked them. I asked Lucy if I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I doing this right? And she slipped me her phone number and said, call me ASAP. And I thought, oh, I've done something wrong. But I called Lucy and she said, no, I just wanted to talk to you and just say, well done. I really love what you're doing and keep doing it. So she wanted to encourage me. That's it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And that's a great thing about the Stitch community too, is that we all should encourage each other, Yeah.
There's certainly the idea. I think back to what you said about one of the ideas behind it for people who might be watching this video who are not familiar with Stitch, or maybe the intros that I've done in the past, that I'm a little bit like you. I don't have a lot of social anxiety, and I'm a little bit more an extrovert than some people. I love organising things, but we have this idea that, look, everyone's out there, and quite often you are having to do something anyway. In your case, you were going to have dinner. You have to have it anyway. And the best thing to start when you're starting a community or just getting connected to people is like, well, you can always, if you're doing it anyway, it's actually, you're not really organising anything. You're just suggesting other people come along and you get to meet them. So it can be as easy as that. Obviously, some people go crazy and organise these massive big events and so on, which is also fantastic. But, it can be just as easy as like, here's something I'd like to do, or I'm planning on doing it anyway, who'd like to come. 35 people for his first event is up there. That's fantastic. And I'm glad it went so well. You mentioned that you had almost everyone showed up as well, which is also really cool. I know now, recently you mentioned to me that you reach out to people when you said they're coming to your events and activities, and that creates probably makes it easier for them because they've got some connection to someone when they're showing up. It can be challenging when you're a new member. But did you do it at that event, or was it just random that you got so many people showing up?
No, I did at that event because I just thought it was the polite
thing to do.
Yeah, and so I've always done that. And I didn't realise until much later down the track, because I've held 20 dinner events now so far. And I've only been to 22 events myself, so I've only been to 2 other events,
Right.
And one of those was just, again, because I was happening to be in the area.
Yep.
And the 20 that I've held myself have always been because I've been doing something else and just thought, well, I've got to eat, and everyone eats. So it's something we can all do, So, that's what I've always done. And yes, and I didn't realise until after doing these for a while, and I could see the accumulated responses and feedback. The most common response I get is exactly what you said, Andrew. Oh, thanks for sending me a message. Now I feel that when I turn up, I know somebody.
Right.
It made a big difference. So out of the 20 events that I've held, I've probably had about 120, 140, something of that order of magnitude.
So that's fantastic. So you've already mentioned you've done 20 events, which is pretty crazy, even that most of the time since you joined. You joined at the beginning of 2020, and then we had COVID and all that sort of stuff. So, and Melbourne's had, as we mentioned, the highest number of days in lockdown of any city in the world. So that's been challenging to get all those events happening. And you've been in lockdown, pretty much about to come out of lockdown now, I think. What's been happening, like, given that there's been such I guess the only way to describe it is that the in-person aspects have been devastating. Any city where there's a lockdown, obviously, people can't meet together in person. A lot of our members have been doing a lot of virtual stuff to supplant that, but some members aren't into the video thing. Some members really want to get out and do things. So kind of what's happened, and what do you think is going to happen, particularly with Melbourne, as we start moving towards a new normal of getting back out there and doing things? I think you mentioned to me that you've been reaching out to people about what's about to happen. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's been interesting, Andrew. So for the most part, the Stitch members in Melbourne have really been suffering. Most of them have. There's some exceptions where nothing's changed. They've just been going to work every day, but they have very, very few exceptions. And there's a full spectrum, full diversity of challenges and problems. And some of the stories that I've heard from people are absolutely heartbreaking. Some of the worst ones. Some of our members have got families that have, family members, close family members, that are in a very serious condition in hospital with the Delta strain. Yeah, but most people are just really suffering from loneliness, and few people have lost their jobs. But this really hits at the core of Stitch. It's really about loneliness, and so anything that we can do just kickstart Stitch again, and the activities I think we should do, and just keep reaching out to people. They're there, they're all there. So Most people I reached out to have responded back and told me quite openly what they've been going through.
Right.
And yeah, so.
And so you mentioned to me, you mentioned earlier in this interview that you were struggling with not having a place to live, not having a job, all that sort of stuff. And that's been a journey that you've had to go through. And I guess you don't mind sharing now that, that's all been solved and you've just recently moved into somewhere. But I know we've had a lot of members, similar things happen because COVID hasn't just been about COVID. It's been about all the secondary effects that it's had on people. All the way through from the social part, the mental health part, the employment part, the fitness and the health and everything. So, and if you've been reaching out to people, you said a lot of people have been responding?
Yeah, most people responded. So out of 43 Melbourne members I contacted off my connections list, 29 have responded back.
Right, cool. Yeah, so we're really optimistic that we're going to start seeing, in the lead up to the end of the year, a lot more of that sort of thing coming back, because Melbourne was really starting to thrive. It was at that tipping point. 2020 was going to be such a great year until COVID came along. But I think it's just so even more important now for us to make sure that we can do what we can, and even beyond the social, the fun stuff is really important. I mean, I think it's really important for people to go, I can let my hair down, I can get out, and I can do things. But also, if we can get that message out there, that there are going to be people in the community that need help of some sort. And it may just simply be a kind ear or, the opportunity to catch up for coffee, but it doesn't need to be a party or going dancing. It can be just, I just need someone to talk to tell you what I'm going through. So anything that you guys down there can do, or even anyone who's watching this video, our philosophy is that we are all part of the solution to all of the problems that anyone has. So we can all help out. So I think that's a great message for everybody. And Daryl, you've been doing playing an incredible role, contributing, but also spreading that word about contribution being the answer. How would you say, I guess it's not really a secret, as you said, you're in a dark place. Would you have said that you kind of were classified as depressed at that point?
Absolutely. I was clinically diagnosed with depression, anxiety, mostly based around overwhelm, but it was pretty severe because the first question I always got asked whenever I spoke to any professional was, was I at any risk of self-harm? Well, absolutely not. I just wouldn't go anywhere near that. But it was pretty severe. But look, I think one of my main beliefs in life is that nothing happens to us in life, no matter how bad it is, to destroy us. Everything that happens, no matter how difficult it is for building resilience and building character. And that can be very difficult to accept and understand. But even that, I still suffer. But even if we can't quite accept that, at least try to pretend, at least have a look at things that are going on and see, well, how can I build something? How can I fix this? How can I move on from this? How can I build? How can I make something better out of a big problem? So that's the philosophy I take. That's what I truly believe.
And how are you doing now?
I got a job 6 months ago. Loving it. I've just moved house. So and also something else recently happened to me on Stitch. Apparently, is not uncommon, but people just joining Stitch for friendship just happened to meet and fall in love. So I'm now in a committed romance with another Stitch member.
Well, that's news to me. I didn't even know that. Well, that's great news. So that's, I feel like, sometimes I've had some pretty tough times over the last few weeks, and almost every day, or not every day, I've got to be honest, but almost every day, something happens. A member will send me a message, or someone will say something, and it just reminds me why everything we're doing has purpose, has meaning, and has an impact. And your story has helped me. I mean, it helps me went through my dark times, knowing that we can help someone. And I know that knowing you, that you know that you're helping other people as well. And I think that's kind of pay it forward kind of mentality is just fantastic. So Daryl, I think that's probably about it for our video. We might even have gone over time, but I think it's such a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I look forward to getting down to Melbourne so I can actually meet everyone in person again, have a good time. I'm actually coming down for Christmas time. But until then, take it easy and thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you.